Hi to everybody. I am Marta Snaidero, a tax partner of GWA, which is a legal tax and an accounting firm with headquarters in Shanghai and offices in different Asian cities such as Saigon, Hanoi, Bangkok, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Thank you for joining us today. This is the first webinar of a series of short webinars where our CPAs and lawyers will introduce relevant topics, trying to introduce them in the as much practical way as possible. So our aim, our goal for these webinars is to try to collect all the common questions that we normally receive from our clients in order to answer during this webinar to those questions and to try to provide to you a very practical approach to the topic and a very business oriented. So today, Giada Piccinini, which is our head of our Shanghai office and senior tax advisor, and I will introduce annual audit and annual compliance in China. As I said before, this is going to be a very short webinar of about 20 to 30 minutes. So if you have any question, please feel free to write them in the Q&A. We will try to answer today. If we cannot answer, we will try to provide an answer via email as soon as possible. Okay, so which are the steps of annual compliance in China? As you can see from this slide, here there is the compliance timeline. So basically, as you can see from the slide, it starts from December, beginning of January, and it finishes in the end of June. But which are the steps of annual compliance and which are the deadlines, the compulsory deadlines according to Chinese regulation? So regarding deadlines, basically we have to consider two mainly important and compulsory deadlines. The first one is the 31st of May, which is the deadline for the CIT settlement, so the annual declaration related to the previous year for the company income tax. So the 31st of May of 2024 will be the deadline for the CIT settlement of 2023. The second and main deadline for the annual compliance is the end of June, so the 30th of June. This year is going to be the 30th of June of 2024, which is the deadline for the annual inspection activities. These are the main deadlines that we have to consider for, therefore, the activity of city settlement and annual inspection, which are the compulsory activities. There is not anymore a provided deadline for submission of audit, but the audit activity must be done before the city settlement, so January before the end of April. As you can see from this timeline, we start with the beginning with the end of December and the beginning of January. So this is our suggestion, because our suggestion is to start to organize the activity of annual compliance already in the end of the year or at the beginning of the following year. This is our suggestion because during this period, it's the moment where you can, of course, appoint a CPA firm for the audit activities, but also you can negotiate and organize in advance the activity with the CPA firm. In fact, please consider that often the auditors, unless your company is very structured and with a lot of transaction, probably they will not, often they don't do certain type of activities which we really suggest, such as an inventory check at the end of the year, or an intercompany check, an intercompany transaction check that can be very useful for your company, and this must be done before the end of the year or in the first days of the following year. So it's very important to organize this audit activity and the annual compliance activity as soon as possible in order to negotiate and to organize the activity with the auditor on time. we suggest this also because, as I said, this can be a moment where you can actually do a financial health check of the company. So, as I said, to organize a inventory check before the end of the year, it's a very important step also to make sure that the accounting is properly kept by the company. Also, during this activity, you can take advantage to see whether your accounting is following the accrual principles, because even if Chinese principles are in line with international standard and they follow indeed the accrual principle, often Chinese accountants are not really keeping accounting in line with this principle, but generally in line with the invoices, therefore to a more cash-based principle. Therefore, what we suggest is to basically be in line to use this moment to make sure that accounting is actually done in line with the accrual principle. Also, this can be a moment where you can check the intercompany transactions. So the intercompany transaction with your sister's company or with the mother company. And this is better to be done before the audit. So in case there is any adjustment to be done, it can be discussed with the auditor in advance and can be done before finish the annual the CIT settlement. So thank you for your time. I will now pass the mic to Giada, which will go a little bit deeper on which are actually the steps of annual compliance. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Giada Piccinini, Senior Tax Advisor and Head of Shanghai Office for GWA Webinars. Thanks, Marta, for the introduction. And now let's go on the main topic, one of the main topics, which is the audit. Actually, though the annual audit report is generally not required to be submitted at the local authorities, in practice, as mentioned by Marta, it's a necessary document and is a required document to all companies to keep it internally. And let's say that the annual audit provides a really good opportunity for all the company to go through and review all the financial information. As mentioned, it's a mandatory document for some specific practice and procedure. For example, the profit repatriation, the dividend distribution. It's required in case of tax investigation. And it's required also in case of some specific procedure and is requested by the tax authorities and tax bureau. So this process, the audit, is really good opportunity to conduct an internal review of all the financial information of the companies, and also to double check and verify all the business practices and in which the company can also improve the internal control and all the mechanisms for fraud prevention. Usually, as the auditor is checking some main items of the company, which include bank and cash verification, and the auditor examine all the cash transaction and match all the activities performed during the year. Usually for the bank verification, auditors send confirmation letter to all the banks through which the company is used to make transaction. So both usually domestic, of course, domestic companies. Second point is the asset evaluation. And so this is something that is one of the most items to be checked, especially for trading, but also for manufacturing company. So the auditor perform a random check and a physical check of the goods in stock, fixed asset, to determine if the value of the inside the booking, so in the bookkeeping, is correct and match with what actually stored inside the inventory. And usually for the asset valuation and for the inventory check, this step is conducted within the end of the year, so very close to the end of December or at the beginning of January. Meanwhile, all the other checks can be performed also later. It is to reflect the correct evaluation, correct value, and the physical presence of the inventory and all of the items, which include the raw materials, good in process, and all the finished goods that the company keeps inside the inventory. Then we go through another important items, which is the debtors and the creditor checking. Also to debtors and creditors, usually the auditor send a confirmation letter. This is not carry on to all debtors and creditors, but only with the most important one. So to all debtors and creditors to whom the company has the most important accounts receivable and accounts payable. This is very important, and usually until all the confirmation letters are not received by debtors and creditors, sometimes it's hard to close the audit in a proper way. And it is one of the most important things to check. And in order to respect deadline, it's important to start all of this confirmation and verification as soon as possible, and as soon as December financial information are closed and verified by the company. Another important thing to check, of course, is related party transaction. So the auditor examine all the historical and unidentified related party, arrange all the confirmation also to related party. And usually also the auditor assess whether all these transactions are in line with the arm's length principle, which is very important in case of a company following specific transfer pricing method, specific transfer price transaction, or in case both the company in China or the company in overseas, the investor went through some tax inspection or has some procedure for verifying that all the procedures are carried on following the length principle. And it is very important to avoid any potential tax adjustment. Other important things is the expense checking. And as probably most of you already experienced, some adjustment made by the auditor inside the auditor include the adjustment, especially of entertainment expenses, because can only reach a specific amount of the total revenue of the company. And it's important for the company to tracking all these expenses, but also track management expenses and try to make a correct keep the whole year. And as I said before, risk assessment and tax analysis important, and it's an important step especially for the following step, which are the CIT settlement and the annual settlement. We can go through the next slides, which analyze the CIT reconciliation. So the CIT reconciliation, as we have seen from the timeline before, is mandatory and must be filled by May 31st of the following year. CIT corporate income tax is declared and in case paid on quarterly basis in accordance with the figures shown in the financial statement of the company. Generally, the annual CIT reconciliation should include all the adjustment sheet which show the discrepancies between the tax law and the accounting standard and what has been recorded inside the bookkeeping of the companies. CIT reconciliation is very important also for the fulfillment of other requirement, which is the annual affiliated transaction report. This is a report that is very similar to the transfer pricing documentation that the company needs to fulfill, especially overseas, which include the master file, the local file. In China, it's not mandatory for all the company to prepare such documentation, master file and local file, but the annual affiliated transaction is important and a must for all the company doing transaction with other party within the same group, and should be filled both by company with services transaction between one company and an affiliated company, and also with companies that are doing business as trading. So all the companies doing activities and business with affiliated party must fill in this report. And let's say that the annual reconciliation compared to the audit, which is not mandatory to be submitted, and sometimes don't even requested to be submitted, CAT reconciliation is a must. And companies that cannot fulfill with the requirement or exceed the deadline for the CAT reconciliation can be highlighted in a specific catalog, and those companies can be under inspection from the tax authorities. Last but not least, we have the annual settlement. Annual settlement is the last step of the annual compliance. And during this step, all the relevant and most important information should be submitted, first of all, online at the National Credit Information Publicity System, and then, in case, but depends from region and from place to place, it must be submitted locally at the different tax bureau. Annual settlement is the last step of the annual compliance procedure, and during this step, what their companies requested to submit are basic information. We start, for example, through with the company basic information, which include the company name, the company address, the number of employees, any important litigation going on, and this is what is related to the basic information. That we have other information, additional information related to the shareholder. So the company need to disclose the shareholder name, the subscribed capital, the subscribed payment date, paid in capital, and in most of the cases also the UBO, the ultimate beneficial owner. And in case the company cannot fulfill this requirement, can request for an extension, especially for the UBO, which is a requirement that has been introduced since not long time. Then other information include the asset information, for example, the total asset of the company, the owner's equity, the total liability, the gross profit, the net profit. Then we have the social security, which include the number of employees for which the company paid the social security, the total amount of social security paid by the company. And in this case, for the social security paid by the company, it's important to fulfill this requirement and to disclose this information, because it's one of the main points thanks to which the company can receive domestically subsidy from the local government for respect and fulfill such requirement as the payment of the social contribution. Then we have other information like special equipment, and this is mainly related to the production and manufacturing company, which purchase specific equipment from overseas or domestically and need to carry on some procedure for the registration. And in this case, there is mandatory to disclose the validity period of depreciation and other information. And last but not least, all the custom information for especially trading company. So in this case, when company need to provide information, for an example, person in charge of custom declaration and manage procedure with the custom, operation address, accounting software used, and other information, for example, bookkeeping, if there's any external or internal auditor. So This is my last slide, and let's say that annual compliance procedure, it's something really important for a company, not only for highlighting and for the document that the company need to provide to relevant authorities, but also for an internal analysis of the situation and for internal control. And this is very important in case of fraud prevention and also for internal analysis of the business of the company itself.
Thank you, Giada, and thank you everybody for joining today. So please, any question you might have, feel free to ask them, and please also follow our channels, and nothing, we'll see each other at the next webinar. Thank you.